Christophe Clugston, the Jedi Dog Master. And if you don't know why I have that name, it was given to me by my students, and because I am unmatched. Check out the Jedi Dog Master Challenge. A lot of people just look at one video, they don't understand what I'm talking about, so I'll just say it a little bit here. So it's a quarter-mile sit-stay recall. That's the qualifier. And then the 3-dog challenge. And then, of course, the above 100-pound dog with no tail doing the switch limp. And you'll see me with Akuma, the monster American Bulldog. It's 110 pounds doing a switch limp, which nobody's going to do. Anyway, $5,000 if you can match me. Other people are not able to match me on this shows trainer skill, using all these different dogs and different things. It's not just one sport with a cherry-picked dog. So what's the big secret? What is the ingredients? What is the recipe? What is the code? What is the inside knowledge? I'm going to give you a little bit of it right now. Okay, so the number one thing that you got to remember with training any animal, and this works for tigers, lions, cats, domesticated dogs, wolves, everything. So this is all about motivation. You're going to have to motivate your canine. And not with magical energy or the cult of personality, but you're going to have to do it concretely. All very successful dog trainers motivate dogs concretely. This is a big secret here. They're not just all telling you about it. This is something you got to know. This is very important. All behavior has a cost, and there must be an offsetting benefit. You don't go to work unless you're getting paid, right? Well, keep that in mind because that's very important. This is a very basic principle of evolution. Animals that behave capriciously in animal training, it is called wasting your behavioral energy. And they are outperformed on the evolutionary field, basically. So domestication has not altered this fundamental fact in dogs. No matter what you may have heard about dogs having an inherent desire to please. Now, this is something that's very important because you're going to find a lot of people thinking that this is, and they'll tell you how to train dogs, but they cannot do what I do. They cannot do what Robert Weatherwax does and a host of other people. If your dog sits when you tell him to, it is entirely because he has some history of either reinforcement, positive or negative reinforcement. We'll get into that a little bit. So, for example, a Labradoodle named Fred was running crazy. He jumped on everybody, and at the park, he took his owner 30 minutes to find him and collect him because he wouldn't come when called. He even played keep away if his owner went after him. So Fred had been taught to sit, stay, and recall, but he wouldn't do any of these behaviors when it mattered. In fact, he barely did them at all. The reason is very simple. He was never paid. Never paid. And he was never paid because the owner felt grossly entitled to his obedience. This is something very important now. The owner felt grossly entitled to his obedience. His owner expected obedience without what many people consider bribery. This I have defined in another. It's not bribery. Semantically, you're not using that correctly. You don't understand the definition of bribery. I have another video about that. And as an academic linguist, it is all about semantics. The owner wanted him to do it for free, basically. They wanted Fred to perform for free. Fred had been trained in a way that's very, usual, common, basic, but also it's ineffective. There had been no motivation at the beginning. The way it was pictured and framed was that the food should be used to teach the behavior, but that once the behavior was learned, once Fred knew it, his owner's praise would be enough. This goes back to the old days of compulsion and praise. You'll find if you read most books in the 50s and 60s, the majority, and 70s and 80s even, are like that, and you still find people that believe that. Food or other motivation was no longer necessary. The owner could just command sit or stay or recall, and Fred would do it because he knew what to do and he wanted to make his owner happy. This is the biggest load of garbage ever. Try it with a cat and tell me how it works. Oh, well, dogs are different. Well, this is where people make a mistake. So in the people who know operant conditioning will say that Fred's vital behaviors were on an extinction schedule, and that means that an animal does a particular behavior, but if he's not paid for it, the more times he does behavior without getting paid, the less likely he is able or willing to do that behavior. It becomes it's not stable anymore. It's not reliable. The behavior is moving towards extinction. So keep that in mind. And also, this type of training is in one way that professionals get rid of unwanted behavior. Think about it. The very behaviors that the owner most needed were on a regimen that professional animal trainers employ as a dedicated strategy to stop, end, and kill behavior. Well, the critical error was confusing what Fred was supposed to do with why he should do it. Trainers call this, some trainers call this the what and the why distinction. In spite of the teaching explanation, the food that was used for the first bunch of repetitions wasn't just merely instructional. It was his paycheck. Now, you'll hear movie trainers talking about this. I paid the dog. Why can we do things that other people can't do? Why do you find the people who are saying it must only be done out of praise? They can't train movie dogs, and this is why. Because when the pay stops, so do the behavior. So will your work. Are you going to your job, whatever job? Are you doing jobs just for praise from people? No, because it doesn't fit under Abraham Maslow's hierarchy, which is I'm covering a lot of things quickly, but I'm giving you tons of free information on how to work to be a better and really great trainer. So, for example, when Fred stopped performing, the owner got upset, which a lot of people do. From the owner's mind, he clearly knew because his owner had witnessed Fred, doing the obedience early on. But when he stopped doing it, the owner thought it's in spite, defying him, being stubborn, and all that sort of stuff. And some people would say trying to dominate him. But Fred wasn't any of those things. He was just being governed by behavioral evolutionary laws. And for example, extinction is nothing personal. It's just the law of nature. So once the owner instituted paying Fred, the behaviors fell into line. You got to use this analogy is very useful, but there are certain warnings about the parallels and these motivations with your dog. We are all, every human, every dog, every cat, susceptible to laws governing basic reinforcement and punishment. And you have motivations, really, well, that your dog doesn't. You probably do all sorts of things that you don't get paid immediately or directly or tangible reward right away. But that's because you're doing things because of ego gratification, achieving a sense of accomplishment, maintaining your health, which is a long-term payoff. That's the whole idea, right, about going to university, delayed gratification. This is one of the things as humans, we buy into the idea of delayed gratification, although many people do not. And you won't find it in the third world, I'll just say that. As a matter of fact, they can't do that. That's also something about you need to know about canines. They don't do that either. They need immediate, concrete compensation for the things that you want them to do, because otherwise it's not inherently valuable. For the dog, he's doing things out of evolutionary need. Again, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Take a look at that and find out. In fact, some of the things that you ask him to do is interfering with goals that he thinks are more, the dog thinks is more valuable, such as, he wants to stay at the park, wants to chase a cat, or jumping up to meet you. These things are more basic to him than what you want him to do. So you have to remember that your human specific motivations don't cut it with dogs. And you wouldn't, for example, tell your employer, no more, don't pay me anymore, because from now on, just praise from the supervisor, manager, boss, whatever is good enough. None of you are going to do that, are you? Remember this, another giant thing. Dogs need immediate positive reinforcement. The other alternative is to use negative reinforcement or punishment. So if he doesn't do it, you hurt or you scare him. That's from the dog's point of view, not from the human's point of view. There are other ways to accomplish great things. In fact, you can't use that for movie dogs. You can't use that to accomplish great things. Let's go back over some of that, because it's vitally important that you understand this. This is a big key to becoming a better dog trainer and having, obviously, better results with your dog. So you have to put a check on your human-specific sort of motivations. Your dog is not going to put out a bunch of behaviors and you're going to think maybe the dog is dumb because the dog's not doing it. Again, the best analogy is, are you going to show up at work? They were paying you for a while and then they stopped paying you, and now you're going to do the same amount of work or even more. Occasionally they're going to say, well, that was great. You did a great job there. No, because you want the money. You don't think it's worth it without the money. And the same thing for your dog. They've got to feel that their effort, their energy that they're putting out is worth it. This goes to evolution. I'll give you a little clue here. Dogs or canines are primarily scavengers, domestic dogs especially. So they're like, oh, they're predators. They're down the line on predators, and they're certainly a Shih Tzu's no predator, let me tell you. But of the dogs that are closer to being the original dogs, which is like the Southeast Asian village dog, jungle dog, pariah dog, which I have, they're vastly different. Now, they're scavengers primarily. Yeah, they will be predators. But they have to look at it this way. How much energy are they going to put out for how much energy they're going to get back in? It's all about calories. How many calories are they going to expend to get how many calories back? And if it's a deficit, if they're putting out more calories than they're getting back, they're not going to continue. They're not going to do it. In fact, they'll die. This is something that people don't get, because in the first world, they don't have to forage. They don't have to hunt. They become grossly overweight. They would die within a couple of weeks because they wouldn't be able to move enough to avoid danger or to actually hunt. They would be scavengers at best. That's why you look at hunting and gathering societies, there's nobody fat in those. They'll die. I'm putting these examples here because they're clear, but you in the first world, especially in the U.S. and such, are oblivious to this because you don't realize. It's just like you don't realize that your whole country is built on the car. The car is part of the culture. Distances revolve around private ownership of a car. This isn't Europe, for example, and it's not Southeast Asia or Africa, for that matter, or India, which is Asia also, the subcontinent as it's called. I am not digressing. I'm trying to make points here that maybe it will make sense to some of you, because a lot of this just goes by people that they don't listen closely, their comprehension isn't there, they don't go back over it, or they don't want to. They just want to be told that what they're doing is correct. And that's why the praise, oh, my dog should do it because he loves me. Yeah, right. Well, you should go to work because you love your job. That's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen now when you have to live. And the same thing for the dog. Remember, the dog needs to be paid for the effort that they're putting out. And the bigger the effort, the better the payment. And some of you are going to say, well, how come working dogs, whatever that might be, search and rescue dogs, etc., or protection dogs or combat assault dogs are not constantly paid? Well, that goes to reinforcement schedules. Sort of like gambling. You don't get paid off every time, but you continue to do it. That will happen with dogs too. And I'm not here to explain everything in detail at all times. A lot of people get all miffed because, well, yeah, that's what consultations are for. That's what these other videos that I have out for. Look at our podcast. Robert Weatherwax and I specifically talk about a lot of these things. And you got to put out effort. It's not going to be just handed to you to impress you. So you got to keep that in mind. Okay, now let's go to a slightly different aspect. Something extrinsic must be done for dogs to perform things that are highly energy draining or that they don't want to. Now, certain dogs have been artificially bred. Humans have narrowed them, inbred them to get sorts of behaviors that become ingrained, that are intrinsic, such as herding dogs, dogs that herd cattle or sheep. This has become self-rewarding, as it's called. It's, this is where you're going to have people talk about the neurotransmitters. A lot of people want to talk about dopamine, but it's more than that. Serotonin and acetylcholine, etc. All of these things, so it becomes self-rewarding. So the dogs doing it is self-rewarding. That's why dogs want to chase cats, especially sighthounds or any small mammal. They were selectively bred to go after rabbits, anything that size. So when they see any, and even a small dog at a distance, they see a small dog moving, that's a small mammal. And you wonder why they do it, and then people get upset because they're doing it. They were bred to do this. You hate them because of what man had bred them to do. You have to be aware of these things, but it's self-rewarding. Same thing with sled dogs. They want to run. They want to run. So the actual going on and on for all day and 1,000 miles in Iditarod or the Yukon Quest in horrible weather is something that they find rewarding to themselves. Of course, you can heighten that, but then I don't want to get into details about all the different types of dogs. Same thing with hunting dogs. Again, dogs that are used for boar hunting, for example, they have a genetic drive to go after the boar, and the ones that catch the dogs, or catch the hogs, I should say, boars, are selectively bred because they want to subdue the boar. And they find it rewarding. In fact, they'll do it till their death, which some people use them for. I have a boar, my Akuma, the most famous American bulldog, that's the monster American bulldog, was bred for that. But I don't use him for that whatsoever, but I understand his background. So you got to understand, again, that the focus of this video is to give you information, and to the wise, to the astute, they will pick up on this is gold. You pay a lot of money to find this out. Again, the compulsive people who say it's the dog either does it, I correct them, or I give them praise when they do it, or the people who say the dog should do it just out of love for me. These people cannot do what I've done. That's why I bring up the Jedi Dog Master challenge. They can't do movie work. They can't do agility work. They can't do trick work. Now, the people who do agility and trick work, there's more to it than just making certain that the dog gets paid. Their motivation, again, we're talking about making that motivation intrinsic to the dog, not just extrinsic motivation. This is incredibly deep, very profound. If you pay attention, you go back over this. There's more than this, but this is one of the big, gigantic secrets that the best trainers, the very best trainers, know. And again, that's why I'm unmatched, because I understand this, I accept this, I don't argue with this, I don't have an ideology against it. I'm about producing results. And you'll see everything that I do is result driven, and I work with all sorts of different types of dogs. My dogs are they're not cherry picked. I use dogs that are rejects I saved from death. I have a primitive dog. I have a dog closer to being the real dog that my jungle dog, for example. And I have two genetically bred great dogs, the Czech Shepherd, and of course my super dog, the Malinois Zarathustra, the Malinois Dutch Shepherd cross. He's, unbelievable. But I say all of this because this will work. It works with rats, pigeons, cats, domesticated cats, lions, tigers, jaguars. You can do it with reptiles too. Of course, you can't get as many different behaviors out of a reptile. But pay attention, people, because this is more than gold, it's platinum.